All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. After losing 2 out of 3 north of the border against the Toronto Blue Jays earlier this week, the New York Yankees hoped that being back home in the Bronx would allow them to get back on track. But the same issues that have been plaguing the Yankees have continued so far in their series against the Philadelphia Phillies. And at the end of the day, when I'm talking about the issues that are plaguing the Yankees, I'm talking about their defensive miscues because the Yankees are looking like the Keystone cops out there on the field as they've been a calamity of errors. 10 errors in just their last 5 games alone. And included in that was a 4 error performance a couple of nights ago against Toronto. It's one of those where you take the Yankees' issues right now, and you couple that with a shaky bullpen and a starting staff as well, and you got yourself a team, in my opinion, that should really be thankful that they're still in possession of the top wild card spots in the American League. And as the days go by, we are seeing New York lose more ground to Toronto in the American League East as the Yankees currently, after today's loss, coupled with the Blue Jays win over the Tigers, are now 6.5 games out from first place with Toronto. And they only have a game and a half lead for second place over the Boston Red Sox. It just goes from bad to worse for the Yankees because Aaron Judge was not in the lineup today with an elbow issue, and now the slugger and two-time American League MVP is headed to the injured list due to that ailing elbow. And of course, if you're the Yankees, it could have been a lot worse because they were worried that maybe he could be done for the season and the possibility of needing Tommy John surgery. That's not the case. But nonetheless, if you are the Yankees, what are you going to be able to do without your meal ticket in the middle of the lineup? Because if you look at Aaron Judge's numbers at the plate for the Yankees and everybody else, there is a huge drop off. And of course, the Yankees are hopeful to get Judge back at some point. But nonetheless, when he comes back, they're talking about having him play DH and having Giancarlo Stanton play right field. That doesn't warm my heart, and it really shouldn't warm the heart of any Yankee fan out there because Stanton is he's got a couple of years on Judge, age wise. On top of that, Stanton has a long, and I mean a long injury history, and you really can't trust him to go out there and play right field, especially when he hasn't played right field or the outfield at all in so long. Not to mention Stanton himself cannot stay healthy, so that right there is not a recipe for success if you're the Yankees. And then when Judge does come back, he's probably going to have to try to grit it through this injury. So that's not a good look right now if you are the Yankees. Uh, Honestly, getting back to the Yankees' defensive miscues, and what to make of them lately. Uh, Honestly, every time I watch the Yankees play defense recently, it's like watching Game 5 of last year's World Series all over again. It's been a bad carryover, and it's one of those where it's cost them some games. I remember a high school coach telling me this years ago, and he said walks and errors will always come back to hurt you. And I think the Yankees have to play better defensively. But and I'm going to touch on that. But nonetheless, this is a team that I feel it's too late to do it. But you got to go back to the fundamentals, and it's kind of like the basics of spring training have like they're not there for this team. It's like watching a team that has an entire team that has the yips defensively, and it's kind of like small miscues as far as getting your body in front of the baseball as an infield on a ground ball and throwing the ball to first base and throwing through the ball as opposed to just trying to get somewhat of the ball, not getting your weight established, not getting yourself settled, and getting a solid, clean throw from your infield position over to first base. If I feel like a lot of guys are rushing, I feel like a lot of guys are pressing. And again, it comes down to the fundamentals. You see outfielders not getting their bodies in front of base hits, not throwing the ball back to the cutoff man, trying to do too much. And of course, you're throwing the ball from the outfield to trying to catch the guy at home plate. More often than not, you're not going to get him. You're airmailing the ball, and then you are allowing the runners to get up a base or two, and of course that leads to more runs. Go back to the game the other night when they lost to Toronto, throwing the ball into the dugout. Of course, that allows the runner who should have been out at first base to now advance to second base. And then what happens? One base hit, and now that's a run right there. You think about Carlos Rodon, he couldn't get out, like he struggled to get out of the fifth inning because of that. I feel like if the Yankees were playing better defense, it helps out their starters and it allows them to go a little bit deeper in the game and save their bullpen. So it's the little things that can lead to the big things to help this club. But like I said before, the Yankees got to get back to the fundamentals. But at this point, it is so difficult to do this because we are in the middle of the season and it's tough to try to get things going on the fly. But the Yankees, nonetheless, got to find a way to do it. You think about Max Fried's blister issue. Of course, he was an all-star pitcher for the Yankees, selected to the All-Star game, was supposed to make the first start for the Yankees coming out of the break against his former club in the Braves. Didn't do that. He got pushed down in the rotation, and then he looked shaky at times the other night against Toronto. But again, the defense behind him did not help him out. And like I said, this entire team defensively is playing like they've got the yips. The Yankees get plain and simple. They got to find a way to get out of their own way and start playing better. We're talking about a club that has lost 7 out of their last 10, and they're 14-23 over their last 37. And this team has gone from having a comfortable, not a sizable, but a comfortable lead in the American League East to now finding themselves in the middle of a wild card battle in the American League. New York is just one game up on the Seattle Mariners for the top spot in the American League for the wild card. The Yankees should be thankful that they swept the Mariners at home just before the All-Star break, because if they hadn't, we're talking about this a little bit different. But nonetheless, New York is up on a game on Seattle. They're a game and a half up on Boston, and then they're 2 games up on Texas, who happens to be on the outside looking in as the seventh best team right now in the American League. So things could switch very quickly for the Yankees if they don't get their act together. And of course, they've already lost 2 out of 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies. And in the process, they've been outscored in those 2 games 21-9. And of course, some of that again goes back to their defensive issues. So they got to try to find a way to go out there and salvage the finale with the Phillies tomorrow. They've got Carlos Rodon going, but it's not going to be easy for this Yankee lineup, especially without Aaron Judge, and especially when the Phillies have their ace, Zach Wheeler, taking the bump. And I guarantee you, this Phillies team has plenty of confidence in the Bronx right now against these Yankees, and it won't get any easier from there for New York, because they have themselves now at the end of July, heading into August, a very big 4-game set at home for the coming week against the Tampa Bay Rays. Like I said, Tampa is right there behind them in the American League East, and they're also right behind them in the American League wildcard picture. And at the end of the day, the Yankees simply have to get their act together. You think about Aaron Boone as the Yankees manager and Brian Cashman. I have said this before, and I'm going to say it again right now. Both of these men should be thankful that they have to deal with the younger Steinbrenner and Howe, and not his father, the late great George Steinbrenner. Because guess what? Somebody would have been gone a long time ago. And I ain't just talking about last year, I'm talking about a long time ago. But the bottom line is, I've said this before, Brian Cashman is too comfortable in his skin as a general manager of the Yankees, and he has been there for far too long. And getting back to the late George Steinbrenner, I saw George Steinbrenner fire front office personnel and fire managers for much less. Okay. Hal Steinbrenner is not his dad. And I think Brian Cashman, and I've said this for years, Brian Cashman is too comfortable in his skin as the Yankees general manager. And it's one of those where Aaron Boone, in my opinion, is there to protect Brian Cashman because at the end of the day, he's just a yes man for his boss and the general manager. And nonetheless, it's one of those where Brian Cashman consistently does just enough, in my opinion, to keep his job. And that is why he has stayed with the Yankees so long. But nonetheless, Brian Cashman's got to go out there and make some moves before the trade deadline. Okay, you got Ryan McMahon from Colorado to play third base. He's not going to be a lifesaver, so to speak, but nonetheless, defensively, he can still be better than what you have at third base because the Yankees really haven't had a third baseman all season long. They put Jazz Chisholm over there, but Jazz Chisholm is more of an outfielder. Okay, and of course, he played second base with the Marlins, played second base when he originally came to the Yankees last year. And of course, we know the issues that resulted in him playing third base last year. However, that should have been an issue that should have been addressed if you were the Yankees in the offseason, and they didn't. They went back with Jazz Chisholm. They went to the well once too often at that position, and now it's costing them. And the Yankees have so many issues defensively in their infield. You just look at Anthony Volpe and all of his issues. Paul Goldschmidt, who is a gold glove first baseman, is having issues of his own with this team. And like I said, when it rains, it pours. And this entire team defensively, in my opinion, has a case of the yips. The bottom line is the Yankees have not played well. Okay. And like I said before, they should still be fortunate where they are at in the standings, and they still have plenty of baseball ahead of them. They got a couple of days left here in July. You got all of August, you got all of September, but you've got to find a way to get your act together. And it starts with the little things. It starts with their defense. I really feel if the Yankees could find a way to play better defensive baseball, it's going to help the pitchers um, that are on the mound because then they could feel like, you know what, we've got a trustworthy defense behind them. We don't have to try to go out there and strike everybody out ourselves just to add to the third. It's going to, if the Yankees found a way to play better defense, it's going to allow the starters, like I said, to go deeper into the games and take some stress off of their bullpen. But nonetheless, the Yankees have bullpen issues, they have defensive issues. And even if, in my opinion, if the Yankees could get their act together at some point, somehow, down the stretch of the regular season and possibly into the postseason, those issues are going to show up again, and they are going to show up at the most inopportune time. You just go back, like I said, to Game 5 of last year's World Series. Prime example of that, where the Yankees are trying to get some momentum for themselves and get back into the series and extend the series with the Dodgers of Game 6 in LA. And of course, we remember what happened. I think it was in the fourth or fifth inning where the wheels just fell apart. And like I said, it has been a carryover to this season, and the Yankees have not addressed it. But nonetheless, they've got to try to find a way to do something. I still think that the Yankees are going to be in the mix for a postseason spot, whether that is getting back on track to make put a scare in Toronto to win the division or a wild card. Nonetheless, there's too much talent on this team. However, it's going to be tougher without having Aaron Judge in this lineup. And if you're the Yankees, you're hopeful that this is not a long-term issue. But I'll tell you like this. I got the feeling that that elbow is probably going to bother Aaron Judge throughout the rest of the season. He's going to gut it out because he's Aaron Judge. He's going to gut it out because he's the Yankee captain. He's going to gut it out because people are expecting him to. But nonetheless, I think you're going to see more of Aaron Judge at the DH slot. And then, of course, I think that could possibly change what the Yankees are looking to do ahead of the trade deadline. So let's see what they can do on that front. But nonetheless, it's definitely gut check time in the Bronx. It's not a dire situation, but at the end of the day, the Yankees got to play better. And like I said, it's the sum of the little things that could lead to the big things. And of course, the big things are getting W's consistently when you take them off field each and every day. But nonetheless, bad stretch for the Yankees. They're doing it to themselves. They're defeating themselves with the defensive miscues, and it's just a carryover to the rest of the team. So let's just see, plain and simple, if the Yankees can get out of their own way. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you could check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports. And if you give me that follow, I will give you that follow right back in return. And the same goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you are on Facebook, you could check us out at the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going around social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.